It's been an interesting journey. We have taken data from Cheki for the past year and formulated a report that we are hoping will become a trend in terms of giving us prices of the used car vehicle markets in the industry. Across the world, in the US and Europe, vehicle price indexes are increasingly being recognized by both financial and economic analysts as an indicator of pricing trends in the used vehicle markets. For instance, in the US, the used price index was introduced in the consumer price index in 1952. That's 68 years ago. The imported second-hand vehicles account for 85% of Kenya car purchases. The growth of the internet has really fueled the availability of information on used cars. So Cheki is a trusted and reliable, cost-effective online marketplace with the widest range of quality vehicles. By applying statistical analysis to the large database, more than 150 used cars over the last year, Cheki and TIFA have developed a price index measurement of used vehicle prices. The Kenya Used Vehicle Price Index report focuses on the prices of cars listings in the Kenyan market. The purposes of the KUV index is to measure an average price and change over time. Cheki and TIFA will publish the KUV index, price index on a regular basis with an intention of including Uganda's used vehicle price index moving forward. I will now be handing over to Maggie, but before that, I would like to say that we have now joined the League of price indices in Kenya. There's one from the Kenya Bankers Association. We have one from the Consumer Price Index of Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. We have the Market Price Index, and now we have the KUV Index. We are very interested in providing value for the user. The Kenya Used Vehicle Index report will be a really great benchmark for us to be looking at and referencing over time to see how prices are being affected in the market by various things. There's changes that do come in place, what type of cars are being brought, how often people are importing. There's legislature that might be coming into place in regards to the number of years we can import a vehicle. So all of these things do have an indication on how the market the market behaves and the prices as well. So we are very interested in providing value for our users. We are very interested in producing this report on a biannual basis so that we can be looking to see how these changes are going over time. We are very keen on being able to take in this data and to look at how this is behaving for the market. So, please look out for the next one. This will be biannually, so we will be letting you know about the date of the next release as soon as the report is ready.
Now, the way the index is measured is that we start with a particular time or period in the year, and our base period is January 2020, and the index at January 2020 is 100 because the time we start is usually at 100. Then after that, we check what deviation there has been from the base period, which was January 2020. Now, what we're seeing with the KUV price index, in January it was at 100, in February it was at 102. In March, which was the period when COVID arrived in Kenya, it went down to 67. So we are seeing a change from 100 down to 67. Then in April, it started rising again. It went to 110. In May, it went to 118. And the peak was in August 2020, where it went to 149. What are we seeing with this kind of information? We're seeing that the price index for used cars in Kenya has been fluctuating, with the biggest fluctuation being in March, where it really went down to 67. And then in August 2020, it has actually picked up to 149. It's quite interesting to say that as we're seeing this trend, in future, as we continue doing this kind of analysis, we'll be able to predict what happens at a certain time in the year. Now, as we look at the month of September, we have seen the index has gone down from 149 to 136, an indication that the prices of used vehicles in Kenya are actually on the decline. Again, we have looked at the listing in terms of volumes, and here the question is, has there been a change in the volumes of cars that are listed in the Kenyan market? And definitely there has been very, very interesting trends. If you look at the month of February, and here I'll be talking about the changes in the number of vehicles that are listed. In the month of February, we saw a plus 5.7%, meaning that the number of listed vehicles increased by 5.7%. However, in the month of March, we saw a decline of minus 118%, meaning that the vehicles that were listed in March declined by a very significant percentage, which is 118%. Again, I'd like to emphasize March, that's a point where COVID had hit Kenya, and we are seeing that at that particular price, the number of listed vehicles declined by 118%. Then in April, we see a change in terms of the volumes. We see an increase of 48%. In May, we see an increase of 5.6%, and the trend continues. Now, what is quite interesting with this information, it's showing that during the COVID period, even the numbers of listed vehicles went down when COVID arrived into the country and have continued to increase as the situation has stabilized in the country. Another question you'd ask, was there any differences in terms of the type of vehicles, in terms of listings over the last 9 months? And the answer is yes. If you look at the period between February and March 2020, we are seeing a significant decline in the numbers of vehicles such as pickups, four-wheel drives, SUVs, saloons, hatchbacks, buses, and mini vehicles that have been listed. Again, as the price went down, as the volume went down, we are seeing the specific vehicles that were affected were pickups, four-wheel drives, SUVs, and buses, hatchbacks, and mini vehicles. That, again, was the period of February and March, but as we continue with the year, we are seeing that gradually the number of the listed vehicles is increasing, and by September, the numbers have actually gone back to almost normal, which means that they've gone up to the level they were before COVID arrived in Kenya. Now, what kind of cars are being listed? What are their models? Kenya is definitely a Toyota market, and we're seeing most of the vehicles that are listed in the used car vehicle price index are Toyotas. We find that Toyotas constitute 43.7% of the vehicles, followed by Nissans, which are at 11.5, and Subarus at 7.3. Kenya is definitely a Toyota market. Whether we're talking about SUVs, we're talking about small cars or minis, Kenya is definitely a Toyota market. If you look at the bodies of the vehicles that are listed, we're finding that 34.4% are either four-wheel drives or SUVs, followed by station wagons, followed by hatchbacks. And what you're seeing in Kenya is that it looks like there's an increase in the number of SUVs and vehicles that are being listed, and it could be an indication of the interest that Kenyans have towards this kind of vehicles, because supply follows demand. So there could be a demand for four-wheel vehicles and SUVs. If you look at the listings of the vehicles, if you look at the Toyota, top of the list is Prados, followed by Harriers, Land Cruisers, and Vanguards. And you can see that the top 4 vehicles that are listed under Toyota are definitely either four-wheel drives or SUVs. If you look at the Nissans, the top car is an X-Trail, which is also a four-wheel vehicle. If you look at the Subaru, the top car that is listed is a Forester, which is, again, a four-wheel drive. Mitsubishi, we're finding an RVR, and it's a four-wheel drive, and also Mercedes-Benz. It's a C200, E250, but definitely Mercedes-Benz are salons. What can we conclude from this report? Definitely the COVID-19 pandemic had an impact on the Kenya used vehicles price index. Prices went down in the month of February and March. In addition to the prices going down, the number of cars listed also went down between February and March, and this is an indication of the kind of impact that COVID has had on Kenya. Now, what are we seeing? We're seeing that the price index has started going up for the month of September, and it's going to continue increasing consistently, as in if you compare it to the month of February and March. But there's likely to be a decline for the month of December, because what happens in Kenya, people, when they're buying cars, they look for the number plate. So it will be quite interesting that people are likely to wait for January and to start listing cars or buying cars, because the number plates will have changed, and that will mean that the demand will be high for higher number plates. This is a very interesting report. We shall continue to publish this report on a quarterly basis, and I would like to encourage people to go to the Cheki website to see what prices there are for various vehicles so they can benchmark on the prices. As TIFA, we're a market research company, and we believe that when we provide data to the Kenyan market, then decisions can be made based on data. The Kenya Used Vehicle Price Index has shown that there's been some fluctuations in the prices, especially after the arrival of COVID into the country. But after the stabilization of the situation in the country, we are seeing that the price index is going up, and this is quite critical. It will be quite interesting to begin to look at this index on year 1, year 2, year 3, and over time we'll be able to look back at the trends and say, if this happened 3 years ago, then it's likely to happen now in this country. Over and above that, would like to urge the people in the industry, the dealers, the consumers who are buying cars, to continue tracking this index, because it will add a lot of value in terms of decision making and informing the decision of how much to price a car or how much to buy a car for.
Yes.
Yeah, and it looks like it's fading, so we need to kind of change.
Yeah.
The gray doesn't come up very well.
Actually, gray is not a color. Kwanza ni photocopy.
Yeah.
It comes out blank.
Actually, for me, it's a last page. Motora, by then, this is feedback for you, eh?
Last minute printing.
Yes.
Until the last page is what?
No, the gray doesn't come out well. So this guy didn't use high resolution.
Printing, okay.